Think about any business, right? From a tiny little coffee shop to a massive tech company. What's the one thing they all have in common? It's people. People are the engine, the creativity, the sheer force that makes everything tick. But that human element, it comes with a cost. And really understanding that cost is one of the most critical parts of running a business that actually works. So let's get into what that really means.
So here's a question for you. When you look at a company, what do you think is its single biggest investment? And at the same time, what's its greatest risk? It's not the fancy building or the software or all the products in the warehouse. Yep, you guessed it. It's the people. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack exactly what that means. We're going to explore how businesses track, manage, and really optimize the cost of their most important resource, their employees. And believe me, this isn't just about accounting. This is at the very core of business strategy. So our first step here is to really get a handle on the challenge itself. Why is managing the cost of people so complicated? And why is it so incredibly important? First things first, let's get a clear definition on the table. Employee cost isn't just the salary that shows up in a bank account. Nope. It's the grand total of all the benefits paid to an employee for their work. This is everything: wages, bonuses, health insurance, and it doesn't matter if it's in cash or something else like a company car or even subsidized lunches. Now, this flowchart you're seeing, this is basically our roadmap for this whole conversation. It shows you how a business goes from the big idea of employee cost control all the way through the nitty-gritty procedures, the potential problems you can run into, and finally the systems for actually paying people. We're going to walk through this whole thing piece by piece. Okay, so where do we even begin with all this? Well, the very first step in managing any kind of cost is just knowing where the money is going. And for employee costs, that starts with a really basic split: direct versus indirect. So what's the difference? It's pretty simple, actually. Direct employee cost is for the people who are literally hands-on, making the product or delivering the service. So think about a carpenter building a chair. Her wages, that's a direct cost of making that specific chair. Now, indirect employee cost is for everybody else who keeps the lights on and supports the operation. You know, the workshop supervisor, the accountant, the person cleaning up at the end of the day. They're all absolutely essential, but you can't really tie their salary to just one single chair. But here's the thing. That whole direct versus indirect idea only really makes sense if we know what we're measuring the cost for. And that brings us to a super important term, the cost object. It sounds technical, but it's just the thing we want to know the cost of. It could be a product like our chair, or it could be a whole project, or even a department. See, the carpenter's salary is a direct cost for the chair, but it might be an indirect cost if our cost object was the marketing department. It all depends on your perspective. Okay, so now we get how to sort these costs, but what are we actually sorting? What really goes into that total employee costs, and how on earth do businesses keep track of it all? Well, the total cost has a lot of moving parts. You've got the basics, of course, the wages and salary, but then you start adding things on top. You have allowances, maybe for travel or housing. You have incentives based on performance. You have any overtime pay. And, this is a big one, you have to include the employer's own contributions to things like retirement funds or health insurance. All of that, together, makes up the true cost of an employee. And to handle all of this complexity, businesses lean on systems and procedures. Things like tracking attendance and having a formal payroll system, they're not just bureaucracy for the sake of it. They are the essential tools that make sure payments are accurate, they're fair, and they're legal. But even more importantly, they provide the raw data a business needs to actually control these costs in a smart way. So, you've got a system for tracking costs. Everything should be perfect, right? Well, not so fast. Even with the best systems, things can go wrong. There are these hidden costs, these leaks, that can quietly drain a business's resources if you're not paying attention. Let's look at some of the big ones. First up, you have idle time, and it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's time when an employee is on the clock, getting paid, but no work is actually getting done. Maybe a machine broke down, or they're waiting for parts to arrive, or maybe this schedule is just a mess. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. It's a direct cost with zero output. You're paying for nothing. Next, of course, is overtime. Now look, sometimes you just have to do it to hit a deadline. It happens. But if your company is relying on a lot of overtime consistently, that's usually a red flag. For one, it's super expensive since it's paid at a premium rate, and it can point to deeper issues like inefficient workflows, bad planning, or simply not having enough staff. And that leads us to maybe the biggest hidden cost of them all: employee turnover. Every single time an employee leaves, the company has to pour money into recruiting, hiring, and training their replacement. I mean, just to put a number on it, studies often find that replacing just one salary employee can cost a company anywhere from 1.5 to 2 times that person's entire yearly salary. It is a massive financial drain that so many businesses underestimate. So why do people leave? Well, the reasons are all over the map. Some people find better opportunities, some retire, others leave for personal or family reasons. But a huge driver is discontent over the job and the working environment. And you know what? That's the one that businesses have the most direct control over. So all of this brings us to the ultimate goal. Knowing all these details, what does it really mean to control employee costs? It's probably not what you're thinking. This quote really hits the nail on the head. The goal is not to just pay people less. That's a huge mistake. The real goal is to keep the cost per unit of output, per chair you build, per client you serve, as low as you can. And how do you do that? By paying people appropriately to encourage them to be more efficient and more productive. And that is the big picture. Smart control isn't about slashing salaries. It's about building a healthy system. It means investing in your people, getting rid of the causes of idle time, planning work better to avoid constant overtime, and creating a great work environment so people don't want to leave. When you do all of that, you get motivated, efficient employees who create incredible value. And that leads us to a final thought to leave you with. We've just broken down employee cost from a numbers perspective, right? But as we've seen, every single one of these numbers connects back to the human experience of working somewhere. So the real question is, how can a business use this financial understanding to build a workplace that's not just more efficient, but actually better and more satisfying for everyone involved?